So before we get started on this writing worksheet where we can write a sentence or two about what's happening in the picture, let's read a storybook for some inspiration. This is called The Polar Bear's Party by Matthew Price. Read by Mr. C, the teacher. Far away at the end of the world, the polar bears live. To us, it seems a cold, unfriendly place, but the polar bears don't mind. They are always having parties, picnics, and sports days to keep their spirits up. On the day that this story begins, everyone was talking about the great costume party. Everyone, that is, except Wretched Fox, who lived in a shack above the nursery slopes. None of the polar bears liked him because he was mean to everybody. Humphrey was having a terrible time deciding what to wear. His sister, Edwina, looked beautiful as Snow White. "Come on, Humphrey," said Edwina, "or you won't be ready in time." As the time drew closer, excitement grew. More and more bears were busy until late at night, bent over their lamps, stitching their costumes with broad bear stitches. We see Aunt Adda, Muriel, Rudolph, Uncle Rennie, Alice's mom and Alice. Humphrey was trying hard. He tried to make a pirate's outfit, but it didn't fit. He tried to make a clown's costume, but he couldn't move in it. He would have loved to have gone as a spaceman, but the fish got in the way. He was about to give up in despair when a cozy voice called to him through the window. "Hello, Ducky. Having trouble?" It was Wretched Fox. "It's these costumes," said Humphrey. "They're all wrong." Wretched Fox laughed. "Now aren't you the lucky one?" he said. "I've got lots of costumes. Come with me." Humphrey didn't like Wretched Fox, but if Wretched Fox had costumes, he would give it a try. He trailed slowly after him. Wretched Fox lived in a shack above the nursery slopes. When they got there, he skipped about Humphrey, taking measurements and talking all the time. What sort of a costume? A magician, of course. Very mystical. Humphrey looked around. "But where are all the costumes?" he asked. "Yours will be specially made by fairy fingers," sang Wretched Fox. "So you just wait in here." He pushed Humphrey into the bedroom. "No peeking now." Humphrey waited and listened. He heard a door opening. That's the fairies, he thought. He tried to peek through the keyhole, but Wretched Fox had hung a coat over it. So he waited and waited. At last the sun went down and Humphrey realized he'd been tricked. Wretched Fox was not coming back. The bedroom door was locked, but Humphrey knocked it flying. He ran home. His invitation was gone, and so was the pirate costume. Humphrey stood still for a moment. He was shocked. The costume would have fitted Wretched Fox exactly. Then he took a deep breath and started again. He took his grandfather's top hat from the wardrobe and sat on it. He took his tatty old overalls from behind the door and bit a hole in them. He took his second best umbrella from the pot by the stairs and hit it against the table with a thwack. Costume was finished. He would go as the abominable snowman. At Long Lake, the penguin band had just arrived from the South Pole and were tuning their instruments. Humphrey dashed down a shortcut through the silvery woods. "Have you seen Humphrey?" everyone asked, but nobody had. Wretched Fox had, but he kept quiet. Humphrey was lost. Branches whipped him across the nose, but he ran on. Humphrey must be waiting for someone to make his costume for him, said Wretched Fox, and laughed cruelly. It was at that moment that Humphrey pushed through the birch trees, tripped over a large root, and burst out of the wood onto the frozen lake. He hurtled across the ice on all fours, scattering polar bears right and left. Wretched Fox thought Humphrey had come for him. He fled for his life. "What a fantastic costume," Edwina said, and gave Humphrey a big hug. The music started up and Humphrey began to dance. He danced until he couldn't dance another step. Then he had a large drink of whortleberry juice and danced some more. Last, the morning sun began to show behind the mountain. The penguin band bowed for the last time. The party was over. "What took you so long to get here?" asked Alice. "Well," began Humphrey, and then he stopped. "Never mind," he said. "It doesn't matter now." Humphrey's map, with Wretched Fox's house up at the top of the hill, the nursery slope, and the silvery woods. Here's Long Lake over here where the party was, and lots of different people's houses, including Humphrey and Edwina's house. So here we have our creative writing page, and we're looking at this picture of a polar bear who looks like he's fallen down and he's landed on his back in the snow. And we see this caution sign up here. Caution signs are usually yellow in color, and they warn people of dangers. This one says, "Watch for ice." I guess that means the road would be very slippery. So usually what we do is we brainstorm a few ideas of what we think might have happened here in this picture and in this story. Then I'll often either write with a yellow highlighter so that students can write over top of it, or students will write their own copying from the board. A few of the ideas that we discussed in class about what happened in this picture were the following sentences. Polar bear was lost looking for Santa. He was walking along he could not read. He slipped and fell in the snow. I start all of my sentences with a capital letter, and I end all of them with punctuation like a period. I've done it in yellow highlighter, and some students might choose just to write one or two of those sentences instead of all of it. But put all together, it starts to tell a story. I'm going to use my pencil now and go over my yellow highlighter. Polar bear was lost looking for Santa. I'll put a period at the end of that sentence. Santa gets a capital because it's a name. Capital P for polar bear. It's his name as well as the start of the sentence. Next sentence read, he was walking along, maybe walking along the road. He could not read. Well, of course he couldn't read. He's a polar bear, and maybe he's just a young polar bear, and he hasn't learned to read watch for ice to know that the road would be slippery. He slipped and fell in the snow. And there we go. There we've got our little story that goes with our fun picture there.